Ukraine's plan for victory is not a single decisive maneuver. It is a multi-layered strategy built on endurance, adaptation, and the systematic erosion of Russia's capacity to wage war. This approach blends battlefield tactics, economic pressure, and diplomatic strength. The core aim is to make the cost of occupation unsustainably high for the Kremlin. Ukraine seeks to exhaust Russia's military, cripple its economy, and isolate it on the world stage. This long-term strategy is designed to shift the balance of power decisively, to force Russia toward a settlement on Ukraine's terms. It is a war of attrition where innovation and allied support counter brute force. We will explain this strategy step by step with clear facts and examples, beginning with the defensive victories that stopped a quick conquest. The first and most critical step in Ukraine's strategy was to survive the initial onslaught. Russia's invasion plan, launched on February 24, 2022, was predicated on speed and shock. The Battle of Hostomel Airport exemplified this intended blitzkrieg. Russia dispatched elite paratroopers to seize the airfield on Kiev's outskirts, to create an air bridge for thousands of troops and equipment, aiming to decapitate the government. This tactic worked in Czechoslovakia in 1968, and in Afghanistan in 1979, and during Crimea's annexation in 2014. But this time, Ukraine was prepared, armed with Western intelligence, especially from the United States. They did not leave Hostomel undefended. A small contingent with man-portable air defense systems stood ready, engaging the incoming helicopters. Soviet-era anti-aircraft guns were brought to bear. Critically, Ukraine blocked the runway with abandoned vehicles and debris, making it unusable for heavy transports. Immediate resistance shattered Russia's timeline, turning a surgical strike into a prolonged firefight. The assault force failed to secure a usable airfield. Mechanized forces arrived the next day, too late. The window had closed. Surprise was gone, the air bridge never materialized, and Ukrainian artillery turned Hostomel into a death trap. The siege of Kyiv became a logistical nightmare, and the defense set the foundation for Ukraine's strategy. After blunting the invasion, Ukraine exploited Russian weaknesses through smart, asymmetric tactics. A key vulnerability: rigid, top-down command and ponderous doctrine. Ukraine's decentralized command and intimate terrain knowledge flipped the script. In September 2022, Ukraine executed a stunning breakthrough in Kharkiv, advancing at a rate that shocked observers, averaging 4.6 miles per day, liberating a vast swathe of territory and forcing a chaotic retreat. Success combined superior intelligence and operational security with exploitation of thin defensive lines. Ukrainian leaders fused Soviet-era insight with NATO-style planning, creating a hybrid approach that kept Russia off balance. Long-range precision fires struck command posts, depots, and logistics hubs, systematically degrading supply and command. Small mobile units executed hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, and raids, punishing exposed supply routes. Partisans provided intelligence and sabotage behind lines, minimizing casualties while maximizing costs for invaders. Every road and forest became a threat. Kherson's liberation followed the same logic, isolating forces by striking bridges and supply. Precision and speed outmatched mass. Piece by piece, the Russian war machine was dismantled. A bold evolution came in August 2024 with the incursion into Russia's Kursk Oblast, a strategic raid with multiple objectives, not conquest. It shattered the narrative that the war was distant and harmless to average Russians. Moscow had to divert significant forces from Donbass to defend its own soil. Roughly 482 square miles were taken in weeks, more than Russia gained in the first 7 months of 2024. It exposed border weakness and command rigidity. Intelligence suggests 50,000 troops were redeployed, stalling plans elsewhere. In March 2025, Belgorod raids evolved the model between Kursk and Donbass. Now backed by Western aircraft, raids integrated air power and stronger supply lines, creating a persistent threat. crucially, perceptions shifted. Western hesitance eased as red lines proved rhetorical. Missiles, aircraft, and air defenses flowed faster. Restrictions relaxed. Ukraine won a perception battle. Western support yielded strategic returns. Confidence and capabilities grew, forcing Russia onto the back foot. Ukraine pioneered deep strikes by leveraging drones, turning drone warfare on its head. Instead of costly military UAVs, cheap commercial platforms were weaponized. From FPVs to domestically produced long-range autonomous systems, inspired by TB2s and Shahed 136, projecting power hundreds of miles. Targets: ammunition depots, military air bases, industrial facilities. Toropets, September 2024, 30,000 tons reportedly destroyed. January 2025, a massive swarm hit Engels, home to strategic bombers. Ranges grew from 300 to 500 miles. Technology and planning improving. Operation Spiderweb smuggled short-range drones deep inside Russia, activated via mobile networks. Reported strikes reached Belaya, an astonishing 2,700 miles from Ukraine. Ukraine increasingly targeted oil and gas, Russia's economic lifeline. By early 2025, up to 17% of refining capacity was offline. These asymmetric strikes impose strategic and economic costs at a fraction of traditional means. Parallel to battlefield operations, Western allies wage economic warfare, targeting oil and gas, historically up to half of government revenue. EU reliance dropped from over 40% pre-war to 11% by 2025, with a 2027 phase-out. Russia pivoted east, at steep discounts, sometimes up to 50%. The G7 capped seaborne crude, lowered under $48 by July 2025. Moscow used a shadow fleet, sacrificing price control and risking enforcement. Sanctions and drone strikes formed a powerful synergy. Refined output fell, hitting gasoline and diesel. Crude became harder to sell profitably. Oil and gas revenues declined in step with outages. The Kremlin faced hard choices: cut spending or raise taxes. After allocating 40% to the military in 2025, a 7% cut was announced for 2026. The strategy: make war economically impossible. It is a long game, growing more punishing over time. Before 2022, Russia was a top arms exporter. Between 2021 and 2024, exports plunged by 92%. What it once sold, tanks, aircraft, air defenses, it now needs at the front. Sanctions severed access to chips, avionics, and specialized materials. Production stalled or relied on inferior substitutes. Quality declined. War footage became an anti-marketing reel of failures. Former clients looked west or to China for alternatives. The longer the war, the more equipment Russia loses and the more factories strain. Export appeal shrinks, draining foreign currency and influence. By destroying Russian kit, Ukraine wins tactically and erodes a pillar of Russian state power. Losses, sanctions, and reputational damage feed a vicious cycle. Rearmament after the war grows harder, if not impossible at prior scale. Russia's military-industrial base is shrinking in capacity and credibility. Beyond the front, Russia faces over 1 million casualties by early 2025, hollowing its workforce. Roughly 1 million people fled in 2022, many highly skilled. A prior demographic crash left a missing generation. The 1635 cohort shrank by about 1.33 million in 2022 alone. A record low 2.4% unemployment reflects a labor shortage, not strength. About 40% of the 2025 budget went to the military, at the expense of services. Official inflation near 9%, many households feel over 20%, eroding wages and pensions. Forbes estimated total occupation would take 250 years and 100 million casualties. Absurd. Ukraine aims to make military victory impossible and the status quo unbearable. Not a parade in Moscow, but a negotiated settlement born of exhaustion. The goal? Liberate all occupied lands, including Donbass and Crimea. Secure robust, long-term guarantees for a sovereign, independent Ukraine. As of today, the strategy's components are in place and yielding results. If this trajectory holds, Ukraine can compel an end to the war and restore a whole European nation.